The hospital waiting room clock read 2:17 a.m. Elena Winters stared at it, willing the second hand to move faster, as if that might somehow speed up time itself. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and the bags under her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. 3 days post-surgery, and the pain in her side still burned, a constant reminder of the piece of herself she had given away. "Mrs. Winters?" Elena looked up. Dr. Mehta stood before her, his white coat immaculate despite the late hour. "The transplant is holding well. Your mother-in-law's body is accepting the kidney. Her vitals have stabilized." Relief washed over her. "Thank you, doctor. Can I see her?" "She's resting now, but you can go in briefly." Elena nodded, wincing as she stood. Her hand instinctively went to her side. "You should be resting too," Dr. Mehta added, concern evident in his voice. "The donor often has a harder recovery than people expect." "I'm fine," Elena lied. "I need to be here." As she made her way down the corridor, her phone vibrated. A text from her husband, Nathan, just landed. "Coming straight there. We need to talk." Elena frowned. Nathan had been in Chicago for a business trip when his mother collapsed. He had begged Elena to be there for Margaret until he could get back. As if Elena would have been anywhere else. She pushed open the door to Margaret's room. The older woman lay still, connected to monitors that beeped steadily in the quiet room. Elena took a seat beside the bed and gently placed her hand over Margaret's. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. The door opened behind her. Nathan stood in the doorway, his suit rumpled from travel, his face a mask she couldn't read. "Elena," he said, his voice oddly formal. "Could we speak outside, please?" She followed him into the hallway, a sense of unease growing in her stomach that had nothing to do with her surgical wound. "How is she?" Nathan asked, but his eyes wouldn't meet hers. "Better. The kidney is working. She's going to make it." "Good. That's good." A silence stretched between them. "Nathan, what's wrong?" He reached into his briefcase and pulled out an envelope. "I didn't want to do this now," he said. "But my lawyer says timing is crucial." Elena stared at the envelope, uncomprehending. "I've filed for divorce," Nathan said, extending the papers toward her. "I'm sorry." The corridor seemed to tilt around her. Elena stared at the divorce papers, then back at her husband of 8 years. The man she had just sacrificed a part of herself to save his mother. "You're serving me divorce papers? Now? 3 days after I gave your mother my kidney?" Nathan had the decency to look ashamed, but only for a moment. "I've met someone else. Elena. I didn't plan for any of this to happen, and I certainly didn't expect my mother to get sick, but what?" Elena's voice was barely a whisper. "You thought you'd let me go through major surgery first, then drop this on me." Nathan ran his hand through his hair. "Carrie's pregnant. We're starting a family." Elena felt as if she'd been slapped. The physical pain in her side was nothing compared to the wave of betrayal that washed over her. "I gave your mother my kidney, and I'll always be grateful for that." The detached, professional tone of his voice made her want to scream. Instead, she took the papers with trembling hands. Behind them, a monitor began to beep more rapidly. A nurse rushed past them into Margaret's room. "Mom." Nathan turned, momentarily distracted. In that moment, Elena made a decision. She tucked the divorce papers into her bag. "Go to her," she said quietly. "I'll be right behind you." Nathan hesitated, then hurried into his mother's room. Alone in the corridor, Elena took a deep breath. Ignoring the pain that shot through her side, they had no idea what was coming. 8 months earlier. "You really don't have to do this." "Elena, it's asking too much." Margaret Winters sat at Elena and Nathan's dining table. Her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. Elena placed a plate of scones in front of her mother-in-law. "I'm not doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to. But donating a kidney is something I can live perfectly well without," Elena finished. "And something you can't live without." The decision isn't complicated. Margaret reached out and squeezed Elena's hand. "You've always been too good for my son," Elena laughed. "Don't let Nathan hear you say that. Where is he anyway?" I thought he'd be home for Sunday brunch. Elena's smile faltered slightly. Work emergency. Some issue with the Tokyo account. In truth, it was the third Sunday in a row that Nathan had been called into the office. Elena had stopped questioning it after their fight last week when he'd accused her of not supporting his career. 14 years at Meridian Financial, and he was finally on track for partner. If that meant some sacrifices, well, that was the price of success. That boy works too hard, Margaret sighed. His father was the same way. Elena didn't point out that Nathan's father had died of a heart attack at his desk at 52. Some parallels were better left unspoken. How are the tests going? Margaret asked, changing the subject. So far, so good. I'm a match, which was the biggest hurdle. Now it's just a lot of additional screening to make sure I'm healthy enough to donate. Elena sat down across from Margaret. The transplant team says we could be looking at surgery in a couple of months. Margaret's eyes welled with tears. I still can't believe you're doing this for me. Your family, Elena said simply. Later that evening, when Nathan finally came home, Elena was curled up on the couch with a book. Hey, she said, looking up. There's leftover quiche in the fridge if you're hungry. Nathan loosened his tie. I grabbed something at the office. He paused. How's Mom? Good, she asked about you. He nodded absently, checking his phone. What did you tell her? That you were saving the world, one spreadsheet at a time. He didn't smile. I've got a lot on my plate right now, Elena. I know, she said softly. We all do. He sat beside her on the couch, not quite close enough for their legs to touch. When had that distance appeared between them? The last round of tests came back, she offered. Everything's on track for the transplant. Nathan took her hand, squeezing it gently. You're amazing, you know that? Not everyone would do what you're doing. Your mom needs a kidney. I have two. It's not complicated. He leaned over and kissed her forehead. I don't deserve you. For a moment, she saw a flash of the man she'd fallen in love with. Earnest, kind, grateful. Then his phone buzzed, and his attention was gone again. I need to take this, he said, already standing. It's Kenji from Tokyo. Elena watched him walk toward their home office, already speaking in rapid-fire business jargon. She touched her forehead where his lips had been, wondering why the simple gesture of affection had felt so much like goodbye. The weeks leading up to the transplant blurred together. Elena underwent final tests while balancing her job as a high school art teacher. She created detailed lesson plans for her substitute and reassured her students she'd be back before the end of the semester. Nathan grew more distant, his late nights at the office becoming the norm rather than the exception. When Elena brought it up, he'd gesture to the stacks of paperwork on his desk. The Hong Kong merger is happening at the worst possible time, he'd explain. I can't just step away because it's inconvenient. Elena tried to be understanding. I'm not asking you to abandon your career. I'm asking you to remember that we're partners. Of course we are, he'd say, kissing her quickly before grabbing his keys. Partners who support each other's priorities. The words stung, but Elena pushed the hurt away. There would be time to work on their marriage after the transplant, after Margaret was out of danger. 2 days before the scheduled surgery, Elena received a call from an unfamiliar number while grading final projects. Hello? Is this Elena Winters? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes, who's calling? This is Diane from Dr. Patel's office. I'm calling about your test results. Elena's heart skipped a beat. Is something wrong? Am I not able to donate after all? No, nothing like that, Diane reassured her. The donation is still on schedule. But there's something in your blood work Dr. Patel would like to discuss with you. Can you come in tomorrow morning? Elena gripped the phone tighter. What is it? Dr. Patel prefers to discuss this in person. Please, Elena said. I'm already stressed enough about the surgery. Just tell me, a pause. Your hormone levels indicate you're pregnant, Mrs. Winters, approximately 6 weeks, based on the levels. Elena sat down hard, her mind racing. She and Nathan had stopped actively trying for a baby a year ago after 3 years of disappointments. They'd agreed to see what happens without the pressure of temperature tracking and scheduled intimacy. Mrs. Winters? Are you there? Yes, Elena managed. I'm here. I didn't know. Dr. Patel will need to speak with you about how this affects the transplant. Pregnancy doesn't automatically disqualify you as a donor, but it does complicate things. I understand. I'll come first thing tomorrow. After hanging up, Elena sat in stunned silence. A baby. After all this time, when she'd almost given up hope. She placed a hand on her still flat stomach, a mixture of joy and anxiety washing over her. She needed to tell Nathan. This would change everything. The transplant, their growing distance, maybe even save what felt like their slowly disintegrating marriage. She texted him, "Need to talk to you tonight. Important news. Please come home at a decent hour." His response came an hour later. "Can't tonight. Crisis with the soul numbers. Don't wait up." Elena stared at the message, disappointment settling in her chest. She typed and deleted several responses before finally sending, "It's important, Nathan. Really important. Can it wait until tomorrow?" No, she thought, it really can't. But she typed, "I guess it has to." She decided to see Dr. Patel first, to understand all the implications before telling Nathan. One crisis at a time, Dr. Patel was direct the next morning. "You can still donate, but I want to be clear about the risks. There's increased stress on your remaining kidney during pregnancy. The surgery itself poses minimal risk to the fetus if everything goes perfectly, but there are always risks with anesthesia." "What would you do?" Elena asked. "If it were your mother-in-law," Dr. Patel considered this, "I'd probably wait until after the baby was born. And if waiting wasn't an option, if her condition was deteriorating, then I'd make sure my husband was fully informed and supportive of my decision." Elena nodded. "Margaret doesn't have much time, does she?" "Her last dialysis didn't go well," Dr. Patel admitted. "We could try to find another donor, but that would mean starting the matching process over. And given her blood type," he left the sentence unfinished. "I want to proceed with the donation," Elena said firmly. "But I need to tell my husband first." That evening, she prepared Nathan's favorite dinner, steak with roasted potatoes and asparagus. She wore the blue dress he had always loved, did her hair the way she used to before they became comfortable with each other. She even bought a bottle of non-alcoholic champagne, a small celebration for herself while setting the stage for her announcement. At 7:30, Nathan texted, "Running late. Start without me." By 9, the steak was cold, the candles burned down. Elena had changed into sweatpants. The blue dress hung back in the closet. When Nathan finally arrived at 10:45, he smelled of alcohol and expensive perfume. "You're drunk," she said, not a question. "We closed the Hong Kong deal." The whole team went out to celebrate. He dropped his keys twice before managing to place them on the counter. Elena stared at the smudge of lipstick on his collar. "The whole team." He followed her gaze, his hand going to his neck. "It's not what it looks like." "Then what is it, Nathan?" He sighed, suddenly looking exhausted. "Can we not do this tonight? I'm tired, and we both have a big day tomorrow with Mom's surgery." "Our surgery," Elena corrected. "I'm the one being cut open. You know what I mean." Elena took a deep breath. Despite everything, the lipstick, the late nights, the growing certainty that something was very wrong in her marriage, she had news that might change everything. "I'm pregnant." Nathan froze, his bloodshot eyes widening. "What?" "They found out during my pre-surgery blood work. About 6 weeks along." He sank into a chair, his face unreadable. "You're sure?" "Yes." "And you're still doing the transplant?" "Not we're having a baby or I'm going to be a father. Just concern about the transplant." "Dr. Patel says it's possible, though not ideal." "There are some additional risks, but—" "You can't," Nathan interrupted. "Not with the baby." For a moment, Elena felt a surge of hope. He cared about their child. "Your mother needs this kidney, Nathan. The timing isn't great, but find another donor." Elena stared at him. "There isn't time for that. You know how long the matching process took." Nathan stood, swaying slightly. "I'm calling Dr. Patel in the morning." "The surgery's off." "That's not your decision to make," Elena said quietly. It's my baby, too. Is it? The words slipped out before she could stop them. Nathan stilled. What's that supposed to mean? Elena gestured to his collar. You tell me. His face hardened. You don't know what you're talking about. I know you're never home. I know you smell like another woman's perfume. I know you've been pulling away for months. This is ridiculous. I've been working, Elena. Working to give us the life we always talked about. The life I talked about included you actually being present in it. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. I can't do this right now. He turned toward the door. Where are you going? I need some air. It's after 11, and we're supposed to be at the hospital at 5 a.m. He didn't answer, just grabbed his keys and left. Elena stood in the kitchen, one hand on her belly, wondering how they had arrived at this point. Despite everything, she went to bed, setting her alarm. Whatever was happening in her marriage, Margaret still needed that kidney. And Elena had made a promise. The transplant went ahead as scheduled. Nathan appeared at the hospital at 4:55 a.m., unshaven and still in yesterday's clothes, but he was there. Neither of them mentioned their fight. There were consent forms to sign, last-minute tests to complete, a carefully choreographed medical dance that left no room for personal drama. Dr. Patel pulled Nathan aside briefly. Elena couldn't hear what was said, but Nathan's expression grew serious, and he nodded several times. When he came to her bedside before they wheeled her into surgery, his eyes were red-rimmed. You don't have to do this, he said, taking her hand. Not for me. I'm not doing it for you, she replied. I'm doing it for Margaret. And because it's the right thing to do. Something like shame flickered across his face. Elena, there's something I need to tell you. Mrs. Winters, we're ready for you. A nurse appeared, clipboard in hand. Nathan squeezed her fingers. I'll be here when you wake up. It was the last thing she remembered before the anesthesia took effect. The surgery was successful. Textbook perfect, according to Dr. Patel. Elena's remaining kidney was functioning well, the transplanted one already working in Margaret's body. The baby's heartbeat remained strong throughout the procedure, but Nathan hadn't been there when she woke up. His mother's surgery had taken longer than expected, complications requiring additional attention. He had chosen to wait outside the operating room, pacing the corridor until Margaret was safely in recovery. Elena told herself not to be hurt by this. Of course he was worried about his mother. She would have done the same. By the time she saw him again, he was distant, distracted. He brought her flowers and thanked her profusely, but his eyes kept darting to his phone. 3 days later, he served her divorce papers in the hospital hallway. In the week following Nathan's bombshell, Elena moved through a fog. She was discharged from the hospital but stayed in a hotel near the medical center to be close to Margaret, who was recovering more slowly than expected. Nathan had moved out of their house, presumably to be with Carrie, though he never actually said her name again after that first revelation in the hospital. He came daily to visit his mother, timing his visits for when Elena was usually at physical therapy or resting at the hotel. But on the 8th day after the transplant, their paths crossed. How are you feeling? He asked awkwardly as they both stood in Margaret's doorway. Like someone cut out one of my organs and then ripped out my heart for good measure, Elena replied. He winced. You have every right to hate me. I don't hate you, Nathan. I just don't understand how you could do this. Any of it. He glanced at his mother, asleep in the hospital bed. Can we talk somewhere private? They found a small waiting area at the end of the hall, empty except for vending machines humming in the corner. I've been trying to find the right time to tell you, Nathan began. There's never been a right time. Elena waited, her hand unconsciously moving to her abdomen. Carrie and I, it's been going on for a while, almost a year. While Elena had been going through donor testing, planning for the transplant, trying to save her mother-in-law's life. The betrayal was staggering. Were you ever going to tell me if your mother hadn't gotten sick? I was working up to it, he said, not meeting her eyes. Then Mom's kidneys failed, and you immediately volunteered to be tested, and I couldn't add to that burden. So instead, You let me go through major surgery while pregnant with your child, knowing you were planning to leave me? He flinched. When you told me about the baby, I almost called it off. The divorce, I mean. I thought maybe we could try again for the baby's sake. What changed? Carrie's pregnant too. Further along. She's due in 3 months. Elena felt as if she'd been struck. You got another woman pregnant while still married to me? It wasn't planned. Neither was... He gestured vaguely toward Elena's stomach. Does your mother know? About Carrie, about the divorce, any of it? Nathan shook his head. I didn't want to upset her during recovery. The doctors say stress could affect how her body accepts the kidney. The irony was almost too much to bear. So you're keeping her in the dark for her own good, just like you did with me. It's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, Nathan. You're lying to protect yourself, not us. He started to protest, but Elena held up a hand. I don't want to hear it. I'll sign your papers. You can have your new life with Carrie and your new baby. But I'm not going to help you lie to your mother. Elena, please. No. Margaret deserves to know who she's really indebted to. It's not just about the kidney anymore. Nathan's face paled. What are you talking about? Elena took a deep breath. The final cross-matching they did before the transplant showed something interesting. Something Dr. Patel said he discussed with you. Nathan's confusion seemed genuine. He just talked about the risks of the procedure, especially with your pregnancy. Then he left something out, or you weren't listening. Elena's voice was deadly calm now. My tissue match with your mother was unusual. Too perfect, actually. I don't understand. A child is usually a 50% match for a parent because they inherit half their DNA from each parent. But occasionally, a parent and child can match on more HLA markers by chance. Nathan's brow furrowed. What are you saying? I'm not just a good match for Margaret. I'm an exceptionally good match. The kind of match you'd expect between a mother and daughter. Nathan stared at her. That's impossible. That's what I thought too. So they ran additional tests. Genetic tests? Elena watched understanding slowly dawn on Nathan's face. Margaret is my biological mother, Nathan. She gave me up for adoption 40 years ago. Margaret's hospital room was quiet, except for the steady beep of monitors. Elena sat beside the bed, watching the older woman sleep, seeing her own features reflected in Margaret's face. How had she never noticed before? The same high cheekbones, the same slight widow's peak, even the same habit of rubbing their thumbs against their index fingers when anxious. 40 years of separation, only to be reunited through an extraordinary coincidence, or perhaps something more than coincidence. Elena thought about all the turns her life had taken to bring her to this moment. The childhood in foster care after her adoptive parents died, the scholarship to college where she met Nathan, the job offer in the city where Margaret lived. The door opened, and Nathan entered, his face haggard. I told her. He said simply. Elena nodded. How did she take it? She wants to see you. As if on cue, Margaret stirred, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw Elena, tears immediately welled up. Is it true? She whispered. Elena moved closer, taking Margaret's hand. Yes, the genetic tests confirmed it? My baby girl. Margaret's voice broke. All these years, you couldn't have known, Elena said gently. But I should have felt something, shouldn't I? Some connection when we met? Elena smiled sadly. Life isn't a Hallmark movie, Margaret. Mom? Margaret corrected, squeezing Elena's hand. Call me Mom, please. The word felt strange on Elena's tongue, both foreign and right. Mom! Margaret looked past Elena to Nathan, who stood awkwardly at the foot of the bed. You've told her everything else? Nathan paled. I thought you might want to... No more secrets, Margaret interrupted, her voice suddenly stronger. Not in this family. She turned back to Elena. I need to tell you about your father. Elena glanced between them, sensing another revelation coming. My biological father? Yes. Margaret took a deep breath. His name was James Winters. Elena's mind raced. Winters? But that's Nathan's father's name, Margaret finished. James was my husband. Elena felt the room spin slightly. Are you saying Nathan is your half-brother? The silence that followed was deafening. Elena looked at Nathan, who wouldn't meet her eyes. You knew, she realized. You found out and didn't tell me. I only learned the truth last year, Nathan said quietly. When Mom got sick, she told me. She wanted me to know in case. He didn't finish the thought. In case she died before she could tell me herself, Elena completed. Margaret nodded. I never intended to take this secret to my grave. But I was afraid. Afraid of how you would react. Afraid of losing the beautiful relationship we had built. So you told Nathan, but made him promise not to tell me. Elena's voice was hollow. And then he met Carrie. That's not how it happened, Nathan protested. Then how did it happen? Elena demanded. Did you start cheating before or after you found out I'm your sister? Nathan flinched. After. But the two things aren't related, aren't they? You suddenly discover our entire relationship is built on a lie. A lie of omission, maybe? But still a lie. And coincidentally, you start pulling away, staying late at work, finding comfort with someone else. It wasn't like that, Nathan insisted. Finding out about our connection was a shock. But I still loved you. Just not enough to be honest with me. Margaret spoke up. Elena, please. Don't blame Nathan for my mistakes. I'm the one who gave you up. I'm the one who kept the truth hidden. Elena turned to her. Why did you give me up? Was it because of James? Margaret nodded slowly. James was married when we met. I was young, naive. By the time I discovered I was pregnant, he had promised to leave his wife for me. But then she became pregnant too. With Nathan, Elena said, the pieces falling into place. Yes, James chose to stay with his wife, to raise Nathan. He offered to support me financially, but he didn't want anyone to know about... She gestured toward Elena. About his mistake. Elena finished bitterly. No, Margaret said firmly. Never a mistake. A blessing I wasn't prepared for. I was 22, alone, with no way to support a child. Giving you up was the hardest thing I've ever done. Elena tried to process this new reality. Her husband was her half-brother. The mother-in-law, whose life she had saved, was actually her biological mother. And somewhere out there was a woman named Carrie, pregnant with Nathan's child, blissfully unaware of the twisted family tree she was joining. Does Carrie know? Elena asked Nathan. He shook his head. I haven't told her. Don't you think she has a right to know that her baby's father is also its uncle? Nathan winced. We're not, what? Not really siblings because we didn't grow up together? Not incest because we didn't know? Elena's voice rose. The genetic tests don't lie, Nathan. We share a father. I know, he said miserably. Why do you think I've been so tortured this past year? Finding out, trying to figure out what to do, watching you volunteer to save Mom without knowing who she really was to you? So the divorce is actually the right thing, Elena said. Perhaps the only right thing you've done in this mess? Elena, Margaret began. No, Elena cut her off. I need to process this. All of it. She stood, ignoring the pain in her side. I'm going to check into a different hotel. I need space. Please. Margaret reached for her hand. Don't disappear from my life. Not when I've just found you, Elena hesitated. I won't. I just need time. As she moved toward the door, a wave of dizziness swept over her. She stumbled, catching herself against the wall. Elena. Nathan stepped toward her, concern on his face. I'm fine. Just stood up too quickly. But even as she said it, she felt a sharp pain in her abdomen. Actually, I don't feel well. I'm calling a nurse, Margaret said, already pressing the call button. The pain intensified, doubling Elena over. She looked down and saw blood spreading across her pants. The baby, she whispered, before everything went black. 6 months later. The lake house was exactly as Elena remembered from childhood vacations. A small, weathered cabin nestled among pine trees, with a deck that stretched out over the water. Her foster parents had brought her here every summer until their death when she was 16. She hadn't been back since, until now. Elena sat on the deck, watching the sun set over the water, casting long golden reflections across the surface. Her hand rested on her now prominent belly, feeling the occasional flutter of movement within. The baby had survived. Against all odds, despite the trauma of the surgery, the shock of discovering her true parentage, and the stress of her marriage imploding, her daughter had held on. The doctors called it a miracle. Elena called it determination. The sound of a car coming up the gravel driveway pulled her from her thoughts. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Only 2 people knew she was here. Margaret appeared a few minutes later, carrying a canvas bag overflowing with groceries. "I brought those peanut butter cookies you've been craving. And some actual nutritious food as well," Elena smiled. "The cookies are the nutritious part. They have protein," Margaret laughed, setting the bag down. "How are you feeling today?" "Good. Better than yesterday. Dr. Lynn says my remaining kidney is adjusting well to the pregnancy. And my granddaughter?" "Active. She's going to be a dancer or a boxer, I haven't decided which." Margaret joined Elena on the deck, her eyes drawn to the sunset. "It's beautiful here. I can see why you wanted to come." "It was the first place that ever felt like home," Elena said. "I wanted my daughter to experience it, even before she's born." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. 6 months had changed many things between them, but not everything. They were still finding their way toward a new relationship, not mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, but mother and daughter, with 40 years of separation between them. "Have you heard from Nathan?" Margaret finally asked. Elena shook her head. "Not since the annulment was finalized. After Elena's collapse at the hospital, after the frantic hours of medical intervention to save the pregnancy, Nathan had been the one to suggest an annulment rather than a divorce. 'As if we were never married,' he'd said. It's more accurate anyway," Elena hadn't argued. What was the point? Their 8-year marriage had been invalidated by biology long before any legal documentation. He and Carrie had the baby, Margaret said carefully. A boy. They named him James. Elena absorbed this information, surprised by the lack of pain it caused. "After his father?" "Our father?" "Yes. Does Carrie know?" Margaret nodded. "Nathan told her everything after your collapse. She nearly left him, but she loved him," Elena finished. "And love makes us accept things we never thought we could. Like finding out your husband is your brother," Margaret said softly. "Like finding out your mother gave you away," Elena countered, but without rancor. Margaret reached for Elena's hand. "I've regretted that decision every day of my life. But it was the right one," Elena said. "You were young alone. You gave me a chance at a different life. A life that brought you right back to me. What are the odds?" Elena smiled ruefully. "About the same as randomly marrying your half-brother, I suppose." Margaret winced. "I'm so sorry, Elena. If I had known, if I had any idea—" "You couldn't have known. My adoption records were sealed. It was just one of those cosmic jokes the universe plays sometimes." "A cruel joke?" "Maybe." Elena looked out at the lake. "Or maybe not. If I hadn't met and married Nathan, I would never have found you. I would never have been tested as a donor match. You might have died before we ever knew the truth." "And you wouldn't have lost a baby," Margaret said quietly. Elena's hand instinctively went to her stomach. "I didn't lose this one, but the first was never meant to be," Elena said firmly. "The doctors said the miscarriage wasn't related to the transplant. Sometimes these things just happen." Margaret squeezed her hand. "You're a remarkable woman. Stronger than I ever was. I had good examples. My adoptive parents taught me resilience, and my biological mother, it turns out, taught me sacrifice, even before I knew who she was to me." The setting sun had almost disappeared below the horizon now, the light fading from gold to deep orange. Soon the stars would appear, countless pinpricks of light in the dark sky. "Have you thought more about what you'll do after the baby comes?" Margaret asked. "About my offer?" Margaret had offered to buy Elena a house, anywhere she wanted to live. "A grandmother's prerogative," she'd called it. "I think I might buy this place," Elena said. "The current owners are looking to sell. It needs work, but it's home," Margaret finished. "I'll help. With the renovations, with the baby, with anything you need." Elena turned to look at her mother, her real mother in all the ways that mattered now. I'd like that. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, Elena felt her daughter kick, a strong, decisive movement. She guided Margaret's hand to the spot. "She knows your voice already," Elena said. "She gets excited when you talk." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "Have you decided on a name yet?" Elena nodded. "Lily. It was my adoptive mother's name. But I was thinking Margaret for her middle name, if that's okay with you." "Lily Margaret Winters," Margaret said, testing the name. "Actually," Elena corrected gently, "just Lily Margaret. I'm changing my last name back to Harper." "Your adoptive parents' name?" "Yes, it feels right to honor them. And to make a fresh start." Margaret nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Lily Margaret Harper, it's perfect." They sat together as night fell completely, the moon rising to cast silver light across the lake. Neither spoke, but their hands remained linked, the past and future connected through them, through the life growing inside Elena. In the distance, a loon called, its haunting cry echoing across the water. The sound had frightened Elena as a child, but now she found it comforting, a reminder that some things remained constant, unchanged by the revelations and upheavals of human lives. She had lost a husband, but found a mother. Lost a baby, but carried another. Lost a kidney, but saved a life that, in the most unexpected way, had once given life to her. The circle was complete, the debt repaid before it was ever known. And in that completion, Elena had found not just peace, but possibility. A new chapter, written entirely on her own terms. "We're going to be okay," she said, as much to herself as to Margaret. "Yes," her mother agreed, squeezing her hand. "We already are."
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.